I think we're still waiting for everyone to sign on.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask, I know that Ms. Jones normally takes minutes. Is she taking minutes or who's taking minutes on this?
Councilwoman Jackson, I'm on and Vanessa Ellington is as well.
Okay, great. Oh, I guess, yeah, I'm sorry. It is Vanessa Ellington.
Councilman Waring, you here? Councilman,
I'm here.
okay. Mayor, I see you here. Mayor, I see you here.
Is
he
Councilman
muted?
Jackson on?
I think the mayor must be on mute.
I was on mute and I was reading something, so,
Oh, okay.
but I am.
Jackson's here. I had to get my glasses.
How's everybody doing?
Doing good. How about you?
Doing well, thank you.
I think we're all here. I don't think Councilman Saccharin is going to be here, I guess.
I don't know.
I think, well, we can get started. We have enough to make a quorum.
Yep.
Councilman Appel,
Yes, sir.
could you open us up with the invocation, please?
Sure. Would y'all mind if I did it in Hebrew?
Doesn't matter. Long as
Great.
it's all right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. It's a very simple Jewish prayer. It just essentially says, God is one, God is our Lord. So hopefully we could all agree on that one.
Amen to that.
Amen.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
So we're gonna move right along. And I'm asking all the board members to we're gonna limit ourselves to like approximately 15 minutes on discussions from each individual. Is that fine?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I just got a text from Jason Saccharin. He's on, but he's muted. If somebody can unmute him.
Do we know his phone number?
Eight four three 843-860-9089.
Is he on yet? Because I want to have
He can hear, Chairman, he just can't.
well, he can't, yeah, he wouldn't be able to really participate
Well, he can in the other things.
from the for what our city
Tracy,
attorney
try the line
says.
ending in
This is a
0507.
conflict of interest.
Only one item, sir.
Yes, sir. He can vote.
He can participate on these, but not the dealing with the LDC.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
So the first business I'm gonna ask Ms. Johnson, but she explained that to us and we can get started.
Yes, sir. Chairman Mitchell and members of the CD Committee of City Council, what I'm requesting and what is before you today is what HUD refers to as a substantial amendment to our consolidated plan that is currently in place. You all may recall you had discussions and we talked about the new consolidated plan. That is almost complete. However, the funding that we're requesting falls under the current consolidated plan. And basically what we're asking of the committee is a reallocation of funds in the amount of $40,000 from our rehab program 27-2018 to address as needed public services as well as temporary housing for our homeless persons that may have to self-isolate or self-quarantine. We believe and have some information that DHEC or FEMA may have funding to reimburse the city for these expenses. It is taking some time to get a final word on that, if you will. And so until we get that, we wanted to have provisions in place where we could literally address these concerns. We've had 2 different families over the last 2 days who've needed shelter. And we've had to work specifically with the Military Community Connections Navigation Center in one instance, and one we were able to take care of that. But these provisions would literally help us to do that for those families and those individuals.
Chairman Mitchell, I move for
Yes.
approval. I move for approval.
I second that, Councilman Mitchell, Keith Waring.
Okay, it's moved and second. All in favor by voting aye.
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 Opposes? Aye, has have it. Okay, we'll move on down to number 2.
Councilman,
Councilman Mitchell, this is Councilman Waring, can you let us know how many councilmen are actually on this call?
Okay, right now we have, it's a total, I think is of 7. It's myself, Councilwoman Jackson, Councilman McGregory, Councilman Saccharin, Councilman Appel, and Councilman Waring.
All right, of course, we got the mayor. Okay, thank you.
The mayor. Mhm.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I
Council.
just make a comment before we go to the next item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I just wanted to share with council how diligent our staff has been to prepare.
You're
And
breaking up.
can y'all hear me now?
Yes, sir.
To deal
Yes.
with all the issues in anticipation of one of our citizens who are experiencing homelessness to also experience the symptoms of the coronavirus. And so we had our first case on Monday, and we took that individual, we isolated them in a hotel room at the city's expense. We arranged him to be screened by the medical university. He qualified for a test to be made. He got the test done. Luckily, in this first instance, the test was negative. He does not have the coronavirus, although he had many symptoms similar to it. So just all the decisions and arrangements that were made to make that possible was a pretty heavy lift. And Johnson and Chris Jordan and Shannon Scaff have done a remarkable job just coordinating all that. It sounds difficult. It's even more difficult than it sounds, all the moving pieces to make that happen. But we believe we're set up now. We have some cooperation from DHEC, and we do believe that they will be able to reimburse us for some of these expenses. But to be ready for more cases to come is important for our city. So thanks for your approval on that.
Yes,
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Mayor, and I want to say to you and all my colleagues that the city staff is doing a tremendous job, and I have to commend them. They are out here,
Yeah.
and I've seen them. I've seen in special police department, the fire department. They're out here, and I'm seeing them every day because I'm still driving around. I stay in my car, but I'm still driving around, and I have to commend them. They're really doing a yeoman's job and putting themselves on the front line also. So I have to commend them a whole lot and keep my prayers up for them because they're out there too. Thank you. So we go on to item number 2, consideration of amendment to agreement with the Local Development Corporation, LDC, to create emergency funds to assist small business as a result of COVID-19. So we're going to start this discussion. And I would ask
Mr. Chair,
probably
Mr. Chairman.
Jennifer, yes? I'm going to ask Jennifer, if
Yeah,
you
that
raise
was-
your hand, Jennifer will probably call you on my behalf because I might don't be able to see you that much.
I think Councilmember Gregory.
Okay. Councilman
Yes.
Gregory?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, Mr. Chairman, as we engage in this discussion,
Yeah, I can hear you.
Couldn't,
I
think-
can't hear him. You kind of blanked out if you can hear me,
Councilman
Councilman Gregory.
I think you're breaking up, Councilmember Gregory. Can you repeat that?
Uh-oh.
better?
All we heard was better.
right.
Okay, is this better? Is this
Yeah, that's a
better?
little
I
bit.
better.
I can hear you now.
You might want to make sure you're on a Wi-Fi connection as opposed to just cell internet.
I bet that's it. I bet he's just on his cell phone.
Yeah,
connection
it's-
And not a Wi-Fi. That does affect your.
Yeah,
bandwidth.
can you hear me? Is this better?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's better.
all
Yeah.
right.
What I was saying was,
Before we really get into in-depth discussion, I would like to hear from our legal department with regard to eligibility. And why I say that, knowing that we have spoken to Brad Everett, who is the Director of Community Planning and Development in Columbia, who worked for me for about 8 years. As I read the rule, it is.
You're not on the call yet.
You there? I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Still can hear you, yeah.
Okay. I think that it's ineligible. If you go to the regulations that was sent to us by Gianna, and you look under ineligible activities, clearly understanding microloans and all that kind of stuff is eligible under the CDBG program. However, if you go to the list of ineligible activities, it clearly says that the dollars cannot be used to supplement monthly household income.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Gregory. I don't see any instructions that were sent to us by Ms. Shaw Johnson.
The regulations were sent to all of us.
Yeah.
When was that?
And if you take a look and go
All right.
under, you found them?
No, I don't have them.
Okay, well, she
I
sent it.
forwarded them via email earlier today.
Yes, I
Earlier
got it.
today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, could we hear from either legal or Ms. Shaw Johnson on this?
Yeah.
The issue that Councilman Gregory just raised?
Yes, we can.
Councilmember Wary, Councilmember Mitchell, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Well, I have not had a chance to review what Gianna sent. And, but I would like to do that. And frankly, from legal's perspective, as you all know, we've been doing a lot of things the last couple of days. And this does raise a unique question. The settlement funds must be spent for eligible activities under Title I. And the agreement also states that the regulations in Part 570 do not apply to the funds. So I don't know if there's a blanket prohibition, but it's something we need to look at carefully. I will say that when we did a preliminary review of the law, it seems like there are a number of restrictions. And again, I haven't reached a final conclusion of whether we could do this or not. And I would ask that the legal department be given some time to do that before we move forward. But there's certainly some criteria there that would have to be placed on this. it has to, for example, create or retain businesses owned by community residents. Has to create or retain jobs for low and moderate income persons. So I think again, even if we can get past the initial threshold, and these regulations are complex, they're not necessarily picking up a code and understanding it easily. We would like the opportunity to have some time to look at it more closely, and if we even can consider it, there's certainly more restrictions that we would be recommending being put on the funds.
Councilman,
Well,
Mr. Chairman?
yes, Councilman Gregory.
Yeah, in doing so, Ms. Herdina, would you look specifically at the UDAG regs, which may be slightly different from CDBG? And when you look at the UDAG regs, if you go to their list of eligible and ineligible activities, under ineligible activity is very clear that you can't use UDAG funds to supplement household income.
Right. So, I think again, as I said, Councilmember Gregory, you've worked with these regulations for a number of years, how, and Jana too, they're very complex. And we certainly want to make sure that we're not doing anything that would jeopardize this source of funds that we received. So
correct.
That's the concern that I've got.
Well,
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. When the LDC executive director consulted with Councilmember Saccharin and myself about the opportunity to use these funds in response to the eligible activities to support infectious disease response. That's when Steve Saltzman, the executive director for LDC, directly contacted Mr. Brad Evett, who Councilmember Gregory just referred to, as the source for guiding him in proposing that we could use the currently set aside UDAG funds for a purpose that dealt with the crisis of the disease response. So Mr. Evett unfortunately wasn't available to answer the more full list of questions that we forwarded to him today. And he's not eligible in his job capacity to be on the phone with elected officials. He needs to involve his field director, who evidently is not really up to speed on all of this. But we have his total encouragement and green light that the use of these funds under the assistance to businesses, including special economic development assistance, in the category to avoid job loss caused by business closures related to social distancing by providing short-term working capital assistance to small businesses to enable retention of jobs held by low and moderate income persons. So that's the category that we would be qualifying for, which is, a new category that was established directly by CDBG to meet this crisis. And I think that's really the premise of what the legal investigation should be, or confirmation or corroboration. So I really would point us back to Mr. Evett. I do think that he is the man who, I know that Ms. Shaw Johnson just got a letter from him agreeing that we could redeploy the $40,000 that we just voted on. So he is definitely the expert for what we're trying to accomplish in using these funds for a more immediate crisis purpose.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Gregory?
Yeah, I don't know whether or not Brad can actually make that call. I think that if our legal counsel gets involved, that our legal counsel should be talking to HUD's legal counsel.
I have no objection. I'm not trying to object to anything. I just wanted to clarify that this isn't, you know, this is not a proposal that didn't go corroborated by the HUD office, that, you know, all of these crisis emergency uses of CDBG funds are being made.
Ms. Jackson, it would be great if you would share the list of questions that were provided to Brad for an answer.
I did, sir. I sent them directly to you and Mr. Giroux and Ms. Shaw Johnson
Okay.
mid-morning today, and asked you to add to them or clarify them. So
I missed them. I'm sorry.
okay. Yeah, no problem. I missed Ms. Shaw. I just saw that the email that you're referring to went out from Ms. Shaw Johnson at one something, and I wasn't on my email at that point in time between now and then. So I'm seeing it now. I see the document you sent.
And that's specifically on the UDAG program, not CDBG.
Right. Yeah. I think that's also a question that that is on the list of how are they regulating what used to be UDAG funds that are now essentially CDBG, regulations for the guidance of how do they be used. That is a specific question. I'm happy to see that list again.
I'll look for it. Don't worry about it.
Mr. Mayor, do you have anything to say?
Well, yeah, I think I'd like to go ahead and weigh in on this whole matter, if y'all don't mind. First of all, the intent to help small businesses in need in our community is critical, and it's a great idea for our city to do its best to try to step in and help small businesses in need, and particularly those who were most impacted right away was hospitality businesses, particularly restaurants, because even before our stay-at-home ordinance, the governor over a week ago now, I guess it was, or a week ago, went ahead and put the order out. The restaurants had to serve on premises. And we have so many dining establishments here in Charleston as part of who we are now. That's a real impact. I don't think any of our council members have an issue of the good intent of trying to help those businesses. I think the difficulty we've been struggling with is just the source of those funds. And so particularly with the hospitality businesses that have been impacted, I would propose to council, and I'm having Ms. Wharton really dig down on our hospitality funds and what's been approved in the past and what's kind of sitting on the sidelines, because we have some hospitality funds that had been dedicated to certain projects that haven't moved forward yet, that I believe we have some availability for that could help hospitality businesses. Now, having said all that, here's another part of all this. It's a very fluid situation, y'all. It's changing day by day. And I think the passage will finally occur today or tomorrow at the latest in the Congress, with substantial help for the business community here and throughout the nation. And what's proposed, and I believe will pass, is something that's called a payment protection program and loan forgiveness. Listen to this, loan forgiveness. I'm going to read from this summary that says that the payment protection program will provide $350 billion federally guaranteed loans for 8 weeks of assistance to small businesses and nonprofits. And listen to this, the loans can be forgiven when used for payroll costs, interest on mortgage obligations, rent, and utilities. So if the loan is made and it's used for payroll, the loan can be forgiven. All the loans we've been talking about today are true loans that need to be repaid to the LDC. I can tell you, it's a much better deal as a small business owner, get a loan that can be forgiven rather than one that you got to pay back. And so I know there's the question about how quickly the SBA can operate and turn these loans around. But here's another thing about this program, that SBA certified lenders will be authorized to make these loans, the payment protection loans. And that includes regular bankers that are in our community, such as I've verified, the BB&T is qualified, South State Bank is qualified, First Citizens is qualified, Wells Fargo. Those are just a few. I think there will be others. So that's a much better deal than what we're proposing, if I may say so, and would be at no risk to the city and would not use any funds that we had allocated for other purposes. So with all due respect, I think we ought to let this play out a few more days and confirm what the Congress is going to pass and the kind of program that will be available to our small business community. Because frankly, from what I'm seeing right here, it's going to be a much better deal than what we had proposed. And I don't want to say one negative thing about the intent and the idea of us helping small businesses in the community. It was all well-founded, and I just think the situation is so fluid that we ought to hold off, see what the Congress does, see what's available to SBA, what the timing is like. In the meantime, continue to explore other funds that the city may have in order to do our own assistance where the SBA doesn't come out. And again, I'll make the point that to help hospitality businesses particularly, I think using hospitality funds would be more appropriate in this case.
Mayor and Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, speaking. Go ahead.
I just want to add a few points of clarity based on the discussion. Both UDAG funds as well as Community Development Block Grant funds are governed by Title I. So although UDAG was the term that was used in the earlier days, they have in fact morphed into what we now know as CDBG funds. So specific to Councilmember Jackson's point, CDBG eligibility under COVID-19, there is an allowance for small businesses when you're assisting low and moderate income persons. As Susan indicated, the regs are what they are. Sometimes they're easy to read, sometimes they're more difficult to understand. But both are governed by Title I's, and so we are subject to Title I's, whether we're talking UDAG dollars or whether we're talking CDBG dollars. To the mayor's point, I spent last night listening to a webinar, and I sent City Committee of City Council members, and I hope I included everyone, a web address for the state director of SBA last night. Literally, because Governor McMaster declared the state a disaster area, they are accepting applications right now. He indicated that to date, 92 applications have been received. He also said that the website is stressed, so he recommended utilizing the website in off-peak hours, but literally no prepayment penalty, no application fee. When you're looking at a certain over $25,000 collateral may be required, although they would not allow collateral to stop businesses from accessing loans. And I mention it simply because this is an opportunity for small businesses literally as we speak. They are available. They're very excited about the opportunity to be able to assist small businesses. They're providing up to $2 million. And they're looking at a 3-week approval or turnaround for those small businesses. So that is an opportunity that is available even as we speak to those small businesses. They even mentioned if you cannot get on the website to submit the application, if you print it, fill it out, and then upload, there's an ability to handle it that way as well. So I just mentioned that as a resource because I recognize that all of us are interested in supporting our small businesses in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson, for that. That's some information. Councilman Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for your interjection on what you said. It is a fluid situation, and I want to thank Ms. Shaw Johnson for speaking to the Title I issue. I agree with both accounts. But first, I want to say that, and he's muted and can't talk on this, and I think, in my most sincerest way, I believe Councilman Saccharin had and has the very best of intentions. I agree with the goal of trying to come up with assistance. And remember, at the period of time they met, that this ad hoc committee met, for lack of a better term, on May 17th. The Supreme Court, the South Carolina Supreme Court had yet to act as far as foregoing or staying, if you will, for a period of time, evictions and foreclosures. The Congress and Washington had yet to fully engage, and now we begin to see some of the fruit of that work. I mean, hard work, providing funds across all 50 states in the union. I asked, and Jennifer did send out a copy of the email from Steve Saltzman, where he says, and I'm jumping into it, but the Sba Disaster Loan up to $25,000 being offered at 3.75% with no recourse and no monitoring. And the mayor's right about part about it could be eventually forgiven. Because the UDAG monies have specific Title I restrictions, any use of them would require the fund to note jobs created or retained for low to moderate income people. Hence, any fund making use of those monies will have more requirements than that offered by the SBA. I agree, Mr. Mayor, with the hospitality piece. I would hope in a continuation in this discussion, if we're going to continue along a dual parallel, obviously, that we bring in Ms. Helen Hill with the CVB to help in trying to think out of the box and on this one. But the urgency of people being kicked out or utilities being cut off, none of that was known on March 17th. Today, on March 17th, we know none of that's going to be happening to any small business as far as being, removed because they didn't pay the rent, or in particular, a person from a home or an apartment being removed because rent or mortgage payments wasn't made or utility payments not made. So that has eased. I would hope that the city would pivot, Mr. Mayor. Again, these are unprecedented times when it comes to helping facilitate small businesses navigate through the SBA process. I hope we would be, maybe our business office would help with that. If a new business, where would a new business go? I've been in business since 1982. I have never applied for an SBA loan. I'm not asking for help. I'm using myself as an example. I think there are a ton of businesses out there that don't even know how to begin with that. So if we can pivot and ramp up and help these businesses, whichever small or large aid they may need in applying for these SBA loans or the process, or facilitate bankers, connecting them with businesses. For example, I don't know about you all, but I got a number of calls from small businesses when they heard that the framework of this loan was coming up. Whatever network was put in place to call those small businesses and have them reach out to City Council to support this program that's on the agenda today, let's use that same network and expand it and help them get involved with the SBA's process. I understand small business saying the SBA takes too long, but you know what? We have never had a crisis like this. We have never had a safety net created from Washington like this, and I think we ought to give the programs that have been created a chance to perform, whether it's 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks. If you get the funding that you need in that period of time, those businesses will survive. So I would hope, and I would hope the LDC, when it comes to hopefully helping to facilitate any businesses that needs help in this application process, those businesses need to know that that resource is there, whether it's through the city, the LDC, or any other creative mechanism that we can think of. So I would agree that if we're going to look at other city funds, hospitality is the way to go. It doesn't have the strings attached as Title I has, as Ms. Johnson has said, and as Mr. Saltzman has said in the email that Jennifer forwarded today. So let's think out the box and help Councilman Saccharin and all of us who know his heart was in the right place on this one. If there's something we can do with the city with hospitality funds, I'm there. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing that information about the fluidity of this situation and how the benefits of what Washington is doing. I've got a number of calls from bankers. I've been on bank boards for 25 years, one form or another. And I got a call from a banker who's on the South Carolina Bankers Association yesterday, and he told me somehow he knew about the microloan fund that we were talking about. And he said the city would be making a huge mistake if we were to do that, because we possibly, he didn't know this, but we possibly could be making businesses ineligible for some of the SBA processes if we were to advance money. So certainly don't want to do that. So, but the more we find out, the more we can push out to the public and reach out to businesses to encourage them to go through the SBA, as opposed to, looking at that as being a negative. This is not a negative that's been created in Washington. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to hopefully working.
Thank you,
in the
Councilmember.
hospitality area. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Jackson, does anybody else want to say anything first? Before I call Councilwoman Jackson?
Councilmember Saccharin has his hand up.
No, but he cannot speak during this portion of the of this litigation on the LDC.
Yeah, the agenda, yeah.
He cannot. He cannot. This is coming from the attorneys. I cannot. He cannot. He can't have it part of the discussion because he has a conflict of interest in that.
That's correct.
This is from the attorneys, not from me.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I think legal counsel Chip McQueenie was trying to say something.
Oh, okay, Ms. McQueenie.
Susan may be on, but that is correct. We're not, if you have a conflict, you can't participate in any discussions of council.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, this is Carol. Thank you for calling on me.
That's state law, it's not my rule.
All righty.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you're on.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I know that I too am very glad that the mayor has put his own efforts into this. I know that, I think he speaks for all of us that we are in agreement that our businesses are in crisis. And the most important thing that I think we are hearing from the business representatives, especially Low Country Local First and the Chamber of Commerce, who are going to be up on our agenda next, are that owners are grateful that they have sort of their own safety net as far as potential deferred rent opportunities and not being foreclosed on if they can't meet their mortgage, and utilities, same thing, deferrals. But what they are most heartbroken and worried about are their own employees and their ability to keep people on the payroll. And that is exactly what this is established to accomplish. So if we can find it through another source of funds, it's great. But I personally do not want us to put all of our eggs in the SBA quick turnaround basket for two reasons. Councilmember Waring, you graciously sent us the memo that Mr. Saltzman had sent to his own board as his notes from our meeting and discussion on Tuesday night. And I looked at it myself, and I can understand how his third or fourth paragraph there talking about the UDAG monies, having specific Title I restrictions, and then requiring us to fund jobs that are retained for lower moderate income people. And hence any fund making use of these monies will have more requirements than that offered by the SBA. I asked him to explain that to me this morning, and he said that what he meant to communicate was that our fund was going to stipulate that it be used for payroll. And that would be the distinction between our fund hitting the mark for what business owners are telling their community is their most poignant concerns of not being able to keep people on their payroll or rehire them if they had the money to do so, while they don't have any revenues. So I think that really was the point of his saying that it's the distinction, because we would be required to make a business owner keep a significant portion of payroll, and of that significant portion, it would have to be dedicated to low and moderate wage earners within that business. The other thing that Mr. Salzman tried to communicate to his board, and you forwarded on to us last evening, was the point in his career's worth of experience in dealing with SBA. It's great that there's going to be a ton of money. And my analogy, I think, is pretty reliable in terms of the way that all of a sudden we had affordable health care that everybody could get on and sign up for. And it really was going to be, and it was going to be a great product, but people were unable to get it into their hands for those first, 5-6 months. The SBA is one agency. And if all of the big money that's coming through and all of the creative programs that are designed to help people in this crisis are still coming through the same SBA agency, it's going to be a big funnel at the top and a little small circle at the bottom. And those monies are still going to, not be as available as we could make it if we were partnering with our local CDFI, who's already established as a resource for businesses. They have a long list of mailing communications to the business community all over the region, and especially our city. So I do think those are two distinctions why I would continue to champion the city establish its own local program that we can get out the door quick. And quick is a fleeting number of days, honestly. The directors of Low Country Local First said if we couldn't get it done this week, another 25% of businesses would be closed or turn off their employees. They might put their lights on as far as paying their, having a place of business, but they won't have any employees to run their business because they can't meet their payroll. And so based on my husband's history and my experience as the very concerned wife of a small business owner who went through a lot of these cycles in 40 years. It's painful when you have to let your family of employees go. And that's exactly what we're trying to meet those needs. So thank you. I think, Mayor, if you can find the money, great. But let's not rely on the SBA and tell ourselves we're doing the responsibility of this, taking this responsibility to completion. If we don't.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Jackson
else?
spoke directly in part towards me. We just have a respectful difference on that, Council Lady Jackson. You've heard from our legal counsel that says that they need more time to research the specifics on this. You've heard from our housing person who spoke to the issues with Title I. We just have and maybe hopefully it's more, have a respectful difference on this. The mayor has pointed to possible other funding sources. I think we need to turn our energies towards that. But I can say this, I believe if anybody thinks that you're going to be able to get the Title I funding that you desire within a week, that's just not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So these businesses that are in jeopardy, the city's going to need more time to do that. The LDC is going to need more time to do that. Frankly, there may be a challenge to what we're trying to do with these Title I monies, which would delay it getting to the folks that you would like this to happen for. So looking for another source of funding that doesn't have the issues of Title I, to me, seems to be more expedient than trying to push this particular effort right here along the way. So again, we have a respectful difference.
Mayor,
on
you
that.
next.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I do
Mr.
need to
Mayor,
just clarify.
Mr. Mayor, no, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor.
because we got to give everyone a chance because our time is going to be running out pretty soon.
I
Mr. Mayor,
agree, but I,
Chairman,
Mr. Mayor,
Chairman,
Mr.
I'm
Chairman,
giving everybody 15 minutes. Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Gregory, he's had his hand up for a while, but I would like to go next. And
go ahead. Go ahead.
okay.
And Councilman Gregory, you're next.
Yeah, just a couple of things. We're assuming that, number one, the city has the dollars to do this, whether it be hospitality or whatever, okay? I don't know that. I'm respecting what the mayor is saying to us. However, we have yet to even talk about our projections, okay, in terms of what we may or may not lose in hospitality and tax dollars. The second thing I would like to say is wherever these dollars come from, I think it needs to be a bridge loan. And what I mean is, if we loan the small businesses money, and I'm the first person to understand the need, okay, we also should say, if you apply for these SBA dollars, okay, and you get city dollars, you've got to give us those city dollars back immediately once you get your SBA dollars. The other thing is, I'm hoping that many of the workers have already applied for unemployment insurance. I hope they have already, and not depending upon the city to address the shortfall of the business in order to give them supplements. So for me, I just think that, you know, as a city and as the chairman, and Mayor, you appointed me chairman of Ways and Means, and we've not really had an opportunity to talk yet about the effects of what's going on with regard to our overall budget and how we may be able to address any shortfalls. We already know that the hospitality dollars and the tax dollars are going to be substantially decreased. Yes, there may be some things in place with respect to the rescue package that might make us whole in time, but still, I don't want us to be flying blindly. I respect everything that you say, Councilman Jackson, okay? But I don't think that what we're getting ready to do will happen in 2 weeks. As I looked at the applications from the LDC for this program, it looks as though the application in and of itself will leave out a number of small businesses, because if I'm reading it correctly, in order for you to participate in the program, you have to at least have 5 employees. Well, that's going to kick out all our barbershops, all our salons, and a number of small businesses that have less than 5 employees. So I think that we really need to look at that application package very clearly that the LDC has developed to make sure that it does not exclude a business, a small business, because of the number of employees that it has. So my concern is bridge loan, if we do anything, and 2, before we do anything, get a sense of what our projections as a city will be based upon what's happening. We already know we're not going to get a lot of money. We may have to make adjustments now, okay, in order for us to be able to continue to operate appropriately. So even with the hospitality money in there, I think that's a great idea, okay? But I still think that as a city, and particularly as Ways and Means, we need to sit down and talk about how this is going to affect our revenue source in the short term and in the long term.
Mr. Mayor?
So,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Chairman.
Councilmember,
Mr. Mayor?
I'd like to share that we have a meeting set up at 3 o'clock, Councilmember Gregory, tomorrow.
I know.
Begin that discussion.
Thank you for that, Mayor.
And unfortunately for our country, the benefit package that's being proposed is not solely reliant, Councilmember Jackson, on the SBA. In fact, the unemployment benefits for those who have been laid off will be supplemented beyond what the state of South Carolina would minimally provide, and extended, if not 3, but for 4 months. So, you know, unfortunately, you're in this, I know we want to preserve jobs, but a lot of our businesses are facing reality and seeing the situation that financially for the business and even for the employee, perhaps it's better to make some layoffs, and therefore they'll be eligible for their unemployment benefits, which are about to be significantly increased. And I guess you might have just seen that 3.3 million people in the United States of America in the last week have applied for benefits. So I mean, there are other means out there that the safety net will be extended to be able to help folks. So the other thing about the bridge loan, if I may say, Councilmember Gregory, and that was on my mind the other day, just what you said. But in fact, the SBA loan may be eligible for payroll costs and interest and rent and utilities, but may not be eligible to repay another loan. And so again, it's fluid. I think we need to see what finally passes tomorrow, hopefully, before we make any judgment. And I again believe we'll find a way to help our local businesses beyond what our state and federal government is doing. I'm committed to doing that, but I would respectfully defer this matter again until some of these unknowns come to light.
Before we go on, Councilman Appel haven't had a chance to say anything yet. Councilman Appel.
Thank you, Chairman. Mitchell, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I think that a lot of great points have been raised by everybody today. I just want to tip my hat to my colleague, Councilman Saccharin. You know, as a new council member, it's difficult at first to understand how things work and how things get done around here. How you take an idea, develop it, and move it through the process. It's not easy. It's complicated, but I think he's to be commended for giving it a very good effort. And it came from nowhere other than the absolute best of intentions. And the fact that he's a small business owner does not disqualify him from being in this conversation. It makes him a critical voice and a very unique perspective in this conversation. So I first just want to say that.
That's true.
Also, I want to say that, you know, it's fantastic that the parties have come together at the federal government. It sure seems like a whole lot of help is on its way. But, you know, I can't even begin to imagine the labyrinth of paperwork and delay and complications that even the best intended, best funded efforts of the federal government will come to bear. So I do think there's a role for a nimble program that can be set up and administered by the city of Charleston to provide, whether it's a stopgap or to fill in the blanks or the gaps in the program is very important. I was so proud of the city of Charleston for taking a very leadership role in this crisis on Tuesday by enacting the state's first stay-at-home ordinance closing non-essential businesses. And I would love for us to continue that leadership role in this important space. City of Columbia has done it. They've used fees out of their water and sewer fund. I can tell you this right now, that is not all buttoned up on the legal side of things. I know that from very direct experience litigating over these very similar issues. I'm not trying to throw shade at the city of Columbia, but I think that the calculus probably was desperate times call for desperate measures. We'll figure it out on the back end. Absolutely sympathize with the concerns over housing affordability. I think that this is a much bigger conversation that we need to continue to have. And I applaud the mayor's efforts to identify alternative funding sources and look to cutting, frankly, some things that may be on the launch pad that we just can no longer afford as a luxury at this point in time. I mean, I don't know if, you know, the various marketing efforts that we're doing as a city of Charleston, the Condé Nast, the we're the best city in the world stuff. I mean, that money needs to go to small businesses at this point. That's just one example. I know I hit a lot of points there. A lot of this conversation's already happened, but I just think that as we continue to study these alternatives, let's not lose that sense of urgency. There's a lot of people out there hurting. There's a lot of people in the food and beverage and hospitality world that are painfully bleeding out every single day. So let's continue to work. I'm happy to help however I can in this process. And I just want to thank everybody for their efforts so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr.
Ms.
Chairman,
Jackson?
are we going to have a motion?
Yeah, we're going to have a motion. Yeah, we're going to have a motion.
I'll make a motion to defer. I'll make a motion to defer.
A second.
All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposes?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We deferred that until another time, until we get the attorneys to get some more information that they're talking about and bring up all the information that the mayor might be talking about and all the council members that might come in and share some other information.
And Mr. Chairman, and just for the record, Councilmember Saccharin, you're abstaining from that vote?
He's on mute, I think it is. Councilman Saccharin, I know you're on mute.
Saccharin, I'm unmuting you. Councilmember Saccharin, are you abstaining from that vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now we move on to number 3, discussion of the proposed emergency ordinance to amend Chapter 54 of the Code of the City of Charleston zoning ordinance by adding a new Part 4 temporarily procedure for public hearing to Article 1 general provision to implement Section 5 of the Executive Order 2020-10.
Move for approval.
Well,
No.
Mr. Chairman, I think
wait a minute.
This is a question by Councilman Appel. Give him a chance, Brother Greg.
Councilman Appel, I'm gonna let you kind of read first before we go on.
Wow. Well, I don't know now. I had some remarks, but now if we're going to move this thing through, we may want to do it. But in all seriousness,
haven't a second yet, so go on.
Okay. In all seriousness, you know,
I'll second it for discussion. Go ahead,
Mr. Chairman.
Let's move in second. Yes,
Mr. Chairman, I think this is Jennifer. I think this is a discussion item only, and I think. With the committee, and if legal counsel is on the line, maybe they can help me with this. I think the committee, this is just a discussion only item if they want to make recommendations to council, because this is an emergency ordinance. So there would really be no action to take other than a recommendation, because they're not advancing this to a first reading because this is an emergency ordinance. And I see Chip on. Chip, do you want to add to that just before the discussion starts?
That's right.
Well, let me withdraw my second then. I'll withdraw my second.
Withdraw my motion also.
All right, thank you. Chip, on you.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Jennifer said. And other than that, I think it's Councilmember Appel. So if anybody has questions, I'm happy to add.
Okay, the only reason I was kind of concerned because I saw in the General Assembly to adopt some of the legislation. So that's why. I was looking for a motion, but go ahead with this discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, you know, after thinking about this a little bit more and having some conversations, I think that this very important discussion needs a first stop in an executive session. This is a matter that involves a variety of important legal issues. And I would actually suggest that we defer this matter for a future date when we can get a properly noticed executive session agenda item on this matter. So everybody can get a full briefing from our legal department as to the various legal issues that are implicated by this need to, you know, maintain certain city quasi-judicial functions while we're sort of closed for public gatherings in person due to the virus. So that would be my recommendation at this time.
Okay, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor?
I'm certainly fine with proceeding to an executive session if that helps move the ball along. And my interest in moving that ball is that there are certain items that are, quote, in the pipeline that are before various boards and commissions, particularly some of which impacting some projects for affordable housing that I believe we need to figure this out so that we can move those things along. And I respect the comments that were made the other night that, you know, we might separate them, some things, those that are in the pipeline versus those that have not even been applied for yet, and maybe split the baby a little bit so that we can move those things along that we know about are already had already been submitted for approvals amongst the various boards and commissions, because we don't know how long you know, this situation will last with the coronavirus, and I believe we got to set ourselves up to be able to continue to do business while we're distancing and all those other things. So if an executive session is what kind of gets us there so we can discuss those legal matters and move this along and make some decisions on it, I'm for that, and we'll try to do that in the next couple of days so that we can proceed.
Yeah, because Mayor, we're gonna have to find a way. We have to find a way how we can do executive session, because we can't do it with the public listening on the line it is now. So I don't know how we're gonna do that. But I'm gonna give we got a few minutes. I'm gonna give Councilwoman first, and I'm gonna give you 3 minutes.
Yeah,
that's enough time.
3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I don't need 3 minutes. I think I was the council member who brought up the idea of splitting the baby, as the mayor just called it, to assist the projects that are in process. I feel more and more strongly that that is the right thing for us to do, but I do think that we should be given a list of those projects that the planning and zoning office would provide to us, so that we know, because I think then we could even maybe split it further in terms of being responsive to what the public is asking of us, to not facilitate a process where they do not participate completely. And so if we take the projects that are in the pipeline, I wouldn't count the ones that haven't been applied. I would count the ones that haven't had a publicly scheduled meeting yet. So start with that list of anything that's in the public, you know, hope to have an April hearing, let's say, and then let us see who they are, and then split them again. We have 2 boards that work only in large and small format, and those I think are the critical ones to helping property achieve the goals that they've established in the process, and also are usually the most costly to an owner, because he's paying experts, she is paying experts to be the support arm to that enterprise. So we have small BZA and small BAR that I think we could look at those projects and probably move them along pretty quickly. And then the bigger ones, I think we should look at individually. And I think that's fair. I don't know. I'm sure that's why we need to have the executive session, to understand the legal constraints that we might be getting ourselves into. But I'm very anxious to do that. And I'm very anxious to help the smaller projects in particular not be stalled that they're going to be so costly to everyone.
Thank you very much. Councilman Waring?
I'll be brief. I just wanted to, I agree with the executive session. Councilman Ross, can we set a time sooner rather than later on that? If you're going to request the executive session, I mean, when would we have it?
Well, I
didn't know I had that power, but let's do it as soon as possible.
Of course. I mean,
yeah, but I think we're going to have
probably
to
advertise and all of that. That's maybe legal counsel's online. When can we do this?
But Councilman Waring and Councilman Appel and Mr. Mayor, we're gonna have to find a way how to do it, because right now we're doing these Zoom online and people are still listening, but they're muted. So we have to find a way how we're gonna be able to do it.
So I think the earliest we could call it would be tomorrow, along with our emergency meeting at 5:30 tomorrow. Y'all up for that for a fun Friday night?
not real.
Absolutely.
Right.
That comes with the job, Mr. Mayor.
We can't go out. We can't go out to the bars.
Virtual happy hour.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor, if they are muted, they'll still be able to hear us in executive session?
we
No,
can,
we can close it.
we can close it.
Close it? Okay.
I think we've got that figured out.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I need to know.
Mr. Chairman? Mr.
Yes.
Chairman,
Councilman Gregory?
I'd just like to piggyback on something that Councilwoman Jackson said that I think is very important, because I'm getting the same kinds of concerns from the public. They want to be able to participate as best they can. I'm getting from my constituents that they think that if we go this route, that it will disable them from being able to participate adequately. So we need to make sure that whatever these committees are, that the public is in fact cued in as best we can. So I really agree with Councilwoman Jackson on that point.
Yes, I agree with that. Councilmember Jackson and I had a long conversation today pertaining to that. But what I was telling her, I'm just following the rules that we have here now. So whenever it's changed, then we have to change it. But I have to follow what's out here at this point, and that's all I was saying, alluding to at the time.
Well, I'm really talking more about not our standing
Planning
committee.
process.
I mean, all committees. I'm talking all.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think she's talking about the standing committee process.
No.
She's talking about the planning, the BAR, and those kinds of things where the public participates in, and just want to make sure that they can, in fact, do that.
Okay. Councilman Appel, then we'll move on. Councilman Appel?
Yes, sir. Just real briefly, and again, we're going to need to have a full conversation about this tomorrow, but just to kind of give a little teaser for everybody as to why this is an important legal issue. Under state law, there are certain types of development applications that automatically are deemed approved after the passage of certain period of time. So I fully acknowledge and value the role of public comment in the process. But the irony of all this is that if we don't hold these meetings, the public will be completely shut out of the process by virtue of our non-action. So there is a dilemma here. It is a legal conflict that we're caught between COVID-19 on one end and the South Carolina Planning Enabling Act of 1994 on the other. And we just need to be very cognizant of that. And that's why this is an important conversation to have with council.
Thank you. We have one more item, which is number 4.
Mr. Chairman, I think Councilmember Waring he had his hand up.
I'm
gonna say goodbye to you all. I've got to jump off and get on a 4 o'clock that I should have been on, and I'm 8 minutes late. So thank you all.
All right. Well, now number 4, we have a report from the Charleston Metro Chamber of Commerce, but I think everyone received the information from Councilmember Sacrum. So I believe if you read over that information and see what they say, I think that's the only thing we have right now, because there's no comment being made.
And I think, Mr. Chairman, I think they sent that to all of us. I read it
Right.
a couple days ago.
Right. Yeah, we have it all. So if you have to read over it, then maybe we might can be able to discuss it another time. But right now,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
I see that Councilmember Sacron's still on mute. I don't know if that's by his choice or, I think I would appreciate hearing why he thought it was important to put on our agenda today. So could you kindly give him that opportunity if he wants to speak?
Councilman Sacrum? I think you're on mute, so you have to take it off of mute, I believe. Okay.
It was on the agenda to have a broader discussion about the need for the loan program. So I'd rather not get into details, but you've all received it. You all can read. It's I would pay particular attention to the job losses, the unemployment claims, and the anxiety that all of our small business owners have shared with us. So that's it.
Thank you. All righty. Thank you much. Mr. Mayor, you have anything else to bring before the committee before we decide to, anyone else have anything to bring before the committee before we decide to close?
I move for adjournment.
Second.
Okay, it was moving second adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
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 Be adjourned.
30.
Huh?
Meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me?
I said good meeting.
All righty, 5:30, we have another meeting coming up, so be ready.
Okay.
Yes,
bye-bye.
sir. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.